2024 was a year that tested the resilience of the Northern Nevada housing market. And despite major challenges, it's very clear this region is becoming a cornerstone for economic and lifestyle innovation in the West. In a year where the national housing market faced all sorts of uncertainty, Northern Nevada stood out as a beacon of resilience and opportunity. And within the new year approaching, questions loom. What will happen with interest rates? I mean, they've been all over the place. Will they finally slow down demand, or will Northern Nevada's growing reputation as a hub for innovation attract even more buyers? The answer can divide this market for the next decade, and I'm going to share my predictions for 2025. 2024, what actually happened this year? I know from the very beginning of the year, people were talking and waiting for interest rates to come down. And so we're talking about pricing. Everyone's waiting for pricing to come down. And so far this year, the resiliency in our pricing in Northern Nevada, particularly in Reno and even the surrounding areas. So whether you are someone who's moving here and maybe looked out to the east in Fernley, or looked in the south in Carson, or maybe was out in Dayton, and even if we went way down there, went to Minden and Gardnerville, prices at worst stayed flat. And if nothing else, they sort of slightly crept up a little bit. So the demand continues from these out-of-state buyers, especially people coming from California. But honestly, we've had buyers come here from lots of different places. And it just doesn't matter whether they're coming because they want to live by their grandkids or they're coming for job reasons. The pricing at minimum just stayed flat. If nothing else, it even went up because the demand kept happening. The second thing we want to talk about is inventory challenges. And of course, there's limited inventory because new construction is happening. It's just not happening at paces that people, I think, would really want to see. And part of that is because of zoning restrictions. And so because of that, the new construction supply, unless you were looking at apartments that got built like crazy over the last year or two, there isn't tons of supply. And I know even for us, we had a really busy year this year. Most of the homes that we listed for sale weren't people selling to move up or people like selling to get a smaller house. So it was people that were either leaving the area for jobs, maybe they got divorced, they were selling out a rental property, or even had a few people where, you know, a husband or a wife, one of them passed away and they finally just decided this house is too much for me. So you did see supply coming on that way. But for a lot of people that still have homes at 2.5%, 3.5% interest rates, they're still in a point where they're locked in where they are, so they don't necessarily want to sell and move out of their particular house. A third option, obviously, is economic growth. And in Northern Nevada, the economy, the new industries, technology, logistics companies, people coming all over USA Parkway. Ever since Tesla came here now, and it's got to be getting close to 10 years, it feels like, major employers keep coming here. And whether they're just bringing portions of their company from the Bay Area or starting brand new technology companies here, you're just still seeing lots of economic and job growth happening here. And so for people, especially that are coming from California, we are still much more affordable for them. And for people coming in those ways, our housing market's great. If you happen to be a younger person or someone who's trying to buy a house just by yourself, our prices become very expensive compared to what you can earn as a single income family. Because people keep relocating here, it's another reason why we think that prices are at worst are going to stay kind of flat where they are. The biggest thing that we've been talking to everybody about this is interest rates. The predictions were that they thought rates might come even below 6% this year. And I think because it didn't happen earlier in the year and the Fed didn't really lower the Fed funds rate until recently, that the first half of the year, the rate stayed higher than I think people thought they were, and they kept waiting and waiting and waiting to be able to buy a house. At the time of shooting this video, Trump has won. He's going into office, and people, a lot of them voted for him because they think he's going to do good things for the economy. It'll be very interesting to see what happens with the Fed funds rate. If it does get lowered, it is not directly correlated to mortgage rates. It'll be interesting to see what happens, and if people will keep coming here after, our prices get, we'll see, even higher. Because if rates do creep below 6 and end up somewhere in the 5s, which may happen next year, I still don't see how for people that the affordability and the price point that has been a problem changes too much for them. So I don't see how prices are going to come down. So if you're someone who's thinking about moving to Northern Nevada, do me a favor, click the link in the description below to get a copy of our free buyer's guide. It'll give you some information to start your journey to Northern Nevada. What does all of this mean going forward as we're trying to make predictions for 2025? And of course, the biggest question I was talking about is pricing. And like I've mentioned already, I think, and all the research I've done, and I had a list of 10 different places that do predictive analysis for the real estate market, is that at worst, we're going to see flat to some, let's say 0 to 3 or 4% appreciation in 2025. So it would be slow, steady growth, which is what used to be the norm the first 10 years I was in this industry. You didn't see a lot of prices jumping where you could buy a home and 2 years later sell it for $100,000 or $200,000 more. I think we're going to be back to this kind of slow, flat, steady price appreciation, and some of that will be based upon what does happen with interest rates. The second one, of course, is increased inventory. We're going to get a little bit of that from new developments, but I don't think there's going to be a lot of mass developments. But if you're going to be out in Spanish Springs or Fernley, I even think they were building some new homes in Carson City, which is an area you didn't see a lot of that. You might see some more inventory that starts to hit the market. I also think that if interest rates do end up in the 5s, that there are some people that might be in the 3.5%, 4.5% interest rate on their current house that might now say, you know what, I made plenty of money on the house I live in, and that jump in increase in the interest rate would be not enough to cause them not to now move. So you might start start to finally see some more of these sell and move up people, or a first-time home buyer willing to be able to jump into the market that might need a roommate or two that can then afford that payment in that regard. So we'll see if we start to see more inventory. I know inventory has increased as the year went on in 2024, but it kind of had to because there was so little inventory the previous, 12 to 18 months that any increase in inventory is going to make it feel like there was a lot more houses for sale. So the other thing we're starting to see is a shift in the demographics of our buyers in this area. So you're starting to see much more young professionals, younger people buying because they're relocating here for tech jobs, logistic jobs. So that might change the buyer pool a little bit. I now deal with buyers sort of in all three price points, whether they're older looking to downsize, younger trying to get into their first home, or people that are in my age group that might be happy with where they are. Death, divorce, job transfers causes enough people to have to put their homes on the market. But that demographic has changed. And so usually between, let's say, $500,000 and $800,000 is the area that turns over the most price point wise in Northern Nevada. And now you're starting to see that. For a while, it was a million plus was most of the people turning those homes over. So it'd be very interesting to see if this change in who's moving here and who's buying here really does affect our inventory levels a whole lot. And then the last thing we want to talk about is the sustainability and resilience of the market here. So there's a growing awareness around water use, climate adaptability. Could this influence developers or people that are buying here? Because I get the question a lot about water, elevation, weather, snow. You get sort of unusual questions for people that maybe don't know a lot about the area. And of course, for those, you can just check out a bunch of the videos we put out there that kind of talk about all these things. I think 2025 nationally, which is where you usually when you watch the news is, 2023 was the lowest number of total home sales in the US in over 30 years. And of course, 30 years ago, the population of this country was a lot less than it is now. In 2024, it's going to be more than last year, but it's still going to be 4 million, low 4 million range. And normally we like to see 5+ million home sales happening in a year. I mean, some of those big years, it was even pushing towards 6 million home sales. So it'll be interesting to see in Northern Nevada. I know some realtors and people in our industry have had a really good year, but a lot of people have really struggled based upon that limited number of turnover in the marketplace. So for those of you that maybe either own a home already, they're thinking about moving up or down, or for those of you that have been waiting for the market to either have rates go down or for the prices to crash, sorry to say, I don't see that happening anytime soon. And I think for those of you, if rates get to a point where you can afford it, whether you have to buy with a partner, maybe now you're getting married, or you have to buy something where you can put roommates in there, it is time to do it, because I've been hearing this story about waiting for the market to fall apart for the last 5 or 6 or 7 years, and it just isn't happening because of all the supply and demand issues that we talk about. So if you're someone who needs information about buying here in Northern Nevada, or you need a realtor in your local market, please reach out to us. We're happy to help you. If you're someone who's thinking about moving to Northern Nevada, check out this video we did about all the pros and cons of living in Reno.